It's always craving homeostasis. It's always craving, to be evened out so that it can function optimally. And then we just help it to get to that optimal or as close to optimal as it can. And so what we see is that people are way off of optimal. It's really easy for them to notice the difference.
We just decided we're just going to start a fresh series, introducing you and introducing one of the devices that I love and talk about constantly with my community and my friends that I use whenever I can, whenever I'm in town, though I'm, as David likes to joke, we're business class and in hotels mostly, rarely ever home. But this device, and I have it right here. I bring it whenever we have our team retreat, and our babies, our fur babies use it. I'm going to pivot it so that you can kind of see. Can you guys see it? I can't see the screen once I do that. Can you see it okay? So this is what I call the magical NanoVi. And Rowena is going to tell us a lot more about this device, this machine, and what it can do and how it supports our system. So, and then we also are going to introduce uh, a few other people from the group, from the company, to tell us even more about the science and how it works. So Rowena, I'm just going to let you go ahead and chat. Uh, let's see. So sorry. Oh, thank you guys. Thank you for your kind notes about Jezebel. But I know she's here with us. Uh, she's here with us in this room as we do this live today. So thank you. But go ahead, Verena. Just let her know. There are people here that haven't met before, and I know that there are people here that join every single time we go live. So they're familiar with.
Okay, that's great. Pleasure to be here. So, first of all, my partner Hans Eng, you've invited him to speak, I think next week on it. And he's really the technology guy. He's the person behind all of that side of it. So I won't go deep on that at all, but I will give people an idea of what it's about. And then I think you have, following that, Morgan Kemp, who's an MD, and he'll have more to say about it from the usage side. He has health, and so he's had different experiences with his patients himself. So that's always interesting. And so I won't try to cover everything.
Yeah.
Uh,
But we want to know what inspired you, because you are, and you guys, when I met Rowena, I thought she was the founder. She's so passionate about what this technology can do for us and the results she's experienced and seen. So I'd love for you to share with the community a bit about your journey, your story, and why you are with this incredible
yeah.
company.
Well, we actually were involved together in a company before NanoVi, and it was something that my partner Hans sort of essentially discovered, and we were kind of sitting on. It's hard to create a medical device. It's a big process with a lot of compliance and a lot of testing and so on. And so we sat on it for a little bit, and then we moved ahead and built then what the company is today. And so I've been with it since really before NanoVi, but I was just before that, I did international e-commerce. I started in 1995,
Mm.
and I was moving in, great documentation, doing things that you now do in the cloud, but we were doing with servers and so on. And so when I started to work with Hans, it helped people. And they would say, oh, this was, you really helped my life or feel so much better or something that very motivating to me. And I realized I was in the wrong space. I was in international logistics, which was not nearly as rewarding. And so this felt really good to just, focus on the health and well-being of people. And what I've done ever since. And now I have deeper experience in this field than any others. So
Yeah, and you're a very friendly face at all these what is now called biohacking type of events, conferences, a leader in the space with the NanoV as an educator and someone who clearly a pioneer because you guys have the foresight to see what this technology could do. So we've talked about how, we talked about whether or not it's you and I or just in general, the platform. I talk often about how the body knows what to do. It knows how to heal and it knows what it needs. So, but it needs help sometimes. And we do it through food, nutrition, obviously through different types of modalities. I'm also in the healing space and quantum space. So there's all these different things. How does the NanoVi help aid the body's natural repair mechanisms?
So it works at a really fundamental level, which is what's so fun and rewarding about it because it's so basic, it can influence and be helpful with almost anything. And its working is through water and through the cellular water. And so what we do is create a slightly better environment inside the cell. And then all those cellular activities, specifically for us, is the protein activity that is supported and it can carry out their functions more readily. And the body then knows what to do, what has to be repaired, what has to, take place. And the body then really takes over, and it's that wisdom that helps people improve. And so it can all be different. One person addressing a chronic illness will be different from another addressing a chronic illness, or an athlete who's wanting to perform better, or an executive who's concentrating and wants more clarity and focus. And so that's all the body that's doing that, and it's deciding what needs to be done, what the priorities are, which are sometimes different than what we think. And then we're just kind of creating a better setting for all of that to take place.
So I want to just pivot the camera real quick so that people can see what we're talking about. When you're talking about, hold on, I just need to make sure the camera doesn't fall off. So we're talking about this device, and there's water in here. So I know that you're not going to go into the deep details on it, and we'll leave that to our two other guests over the next couple weeks to kind of get into the mechanics of the machine and also what it's doing to the body on a cellular level. But just to give someone sort of the bare basics, can you let us know what's happening? We use distilled water. It goes into, this vessel right here that holds the water. We turn it on. What is the machine doing with that water so that the body can use it to support itself?
Sure, sure. So it's distilled water because you want really clean water. And creating humidity, that's the bubbling that you might have been able to see on top of the device. It's bubbling water, creates humidity, and then that humid airflow is run through the device, and it's bombarded with wavelengths that adjust the water in a way that when it is transferred into your body and through the mucous membrane, so you inhale the water from that tube that you can see on the side of the device. When it's transferred through the mucous membrane, it connects to the cellular water. And so it's more like a stack of dominoes, one tipping the next one over, than it is sort of a state like heat that might just diffuse through the whole body.
Yeah,
And
because it doesn't feel hot. When you run it, it's not hot at all. Just to let people know in terms of like from a user perspective, I'll either use a cannula, which, it's something that will attach right here to the end of it. You can just put it in your mouth and your nose and breathe it in, breathe in that what Rowena called that sort of humid air. Or I can put a cannula attached to the end of this. There's a, can you guys see that?
yeah,
And then I put a cannula there, and then I just wear it and hook it up, to the back of my ears and put it in my nose. So what we're doing is we're using clean distilled water, and the machine runs it, making, turning into sort of humid air. And you said it's hit with wavelengths.
yeah.
So some people have said, is that electricity? Is it, I mean, I can answer the questions, but I would love for you to. What kind of wavelengths and what is that doing to the structure of the water? And again, we won't get into
No,
detail. We'll leave that for the next two
yeah.
talks.
So those wavelengths are, just to give a reference for people, if you do red light therapy, for example, it's going to be 650, 664, whatever range. And most of those therapies are 600 to 800, maybe 900 nanometers.
Right.
Was a part of the electromagnetic spectrum. We're at the very high end of near infrared. So it's up around 1200 nanometers and above that, the wavelengths that we use. And so everything's just this big electromagnetic spectrum, and we're just using the pieces of it that will create the energy state in the water that we want. And what we want is for the water molecules very closely packed together on the shell of the water droplet and state of the water that then transfers to the cells. And like I said, I don't know if dominoes is a good example, but it transfers until it hits something. And when it hits something, the energy state accumulates on the surface. And most likely it's going to hit a protein because there's 5, 10, maybe 15,000 proteins in each cell. They're just all over the place. And so once that energy builds up on the surface of the protein, it supports the folding process. And for people that aren't familiar with proteins, a protein has to fold before it can function. So it starts as a chain of amino acids. It has to fold into a complex 3D shape, and then it works. And so it's that very last phase that relies on the water the protein's immersed in, and everything's immersed in water. And it needs that water for the energy it needs to fold. But it's not energy like heat or electricity or things we are familiar with. It's actually the amount of order and chaos in the water, or the entropy in the water. That's the difference that it makes in the way the protein functions. So the protein becomes more ordered and the water becomes less ordered. And then the NanoVi is just helping supply more order to the water surrounding the proteins.
That's actually, I don't know if we explained it that way last time, and that's sort of a great way to explain it. It's using the water is bringing order to what's sort of chaotic with the proteins. It's sort of bringing more structure and order there so that the body can heal. Is that what that's sort of, in a very rough way of saying it,
Yeah.
what the technology is doing? So, so when you say that it's sort of a different recipe, a different protocol, every person's body is different and their needs are different. Can you sort of, and again, we'll go into more detail in our next two chat, but can you sort of give us a visual of what that looks like? So, how does it know? How does the body know what to do once there's order to these proteins?
It's the body is the most amazing thing in the universe, as far as we know. Um, it's how it knows that it's designed to know it. It's the biology. And so that let's say you have a cut and it's inflamed because it's trying to heal and it's trying to protect you, your immune system kicks in and so on. If you get a cut biologically, your body knows to go in and repair that. And it knows that if you're not sleeping, you need sleep. Or if you're overstressed, you need to come out of that stress mode in order for the body to be healthy and function properly. And so those are just all functions that it's always craving homeostasis. It's always craving, to be evened out so that it can function optimally. And then we just help it to get to that optimal or as close to optimal as it can. And so what we see is that people are way off of optimal. It's really easy for them to notice the difference.
Mm.
And somebody is really, really, in excellent condition and they're not stressing themselves, then it's not going to be a big noticeable difference because you just don't have the same room for improvement.
Mm.
And really healthy people, it's when they exercise or they've concentrated and focused for a long time, that's when they can tell the difference. But the majority of people have other factors that they can see because they're not. Most of us are not even close to being very optimal because we're constantly have all these factors that can undermine our health in our lives, either, willingly or not. So,
So what you know what I love about the device, and again, we have an amazing audience here who got very little notice. And they're here supporting, and you'll get a lot more detail on the science and also the tech behind it. But how we wanted to introduce this was that this is another modality that's very holistic. It's not intrusive in any way, like some other ways of healing or optimizing. This is a way that they use water, and they, I guess they nanovize it. I don't enough the word. I just made it up to help our body on a cellular level create order within the protein so that it can do what it's designed to do. And I again just really that's very broad stroke, not very scientific in the way I explain that. But the point of that is there's no cuts, there's no injections, there's no anything. It's really just working with your body and giving it a more optimal environment to help rebalance and heal itself. So, so because it's so, I guess, not invasive, it stacks very well with other types of modalities, right? Other what we've sort of coined now society wise, biohacking type of techniques, which is probably why you guys are so ever present at these different conferences and gatherings. You were just at the Vatican, or did you just
I go next month. I go in 2 weeks.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. So you haven't gone yet. We'll have to ask you about that when we come back. So tell us about that. It's not every year that someone can go to the Vatican representing a healing modality that's been created with technology. So can you tell us a little bit first about what that is and why NanoVi fits into that category for that summit? And then go back to my question that I just asked about how we can
Oh, sure. Okay. So first of all, this conference at the Vatican is this one day of meetings plus another reception at the Science Academy there. And it's organized by a wonderful man named Gabriele Andreoli. And he really is, you're going to hear more about him and from him in the future because he's very dedicated to having ways that support the system, that don't override it, that don't have the potential for harm, and that really are wellness oriented. And then he also has this focus of cooperation, including international cooperation. So he's just it's a great setting to be included there. And so that was the main reason that I think we were invited, was that we we tried to address the whole system and let the body take over. Body does its own thing. We're just supporting it rather than being an intervention that overrides different bits and pieces of it. And in a way, why it stacks so well, if you're using any other modality on any other part of the body and you can just improve the way the cells are functioning, then it's going to make it work better. And so NanoVi is very complementary to any of these other interventions. And there's lots of them.
yeah,
And there's
let's name a few, that people are familiar with. Let's just drop a few out there that people talk about, whether it's infrared, whether it's light therapy, whether it is IV therapy, which is slightly more invasive. How does this complement? How can it enhance or optimize some of these other modalities?
Well, some of the ones that most people don't have at home are cryotherapy or hyperbaric therapy, but they get better results. And if you're stirring things up with one of those, fairly impactful therapies, then having it work better and reducing any oxidative damage that might be associated is a really great way to go. And those are ones we see a lot with their red light therapy, for example, as well. And the IVs are interesting. They're all different kinds of IVs. And with NAD plus, for example, tolerate it way better and they don't feel sick. And it's a very visible, noticeable difference if it's being done with the NAD plus. But any of the vitamin therapies, it's sort of like hyperbarics. If you put something extra into the system, you want it utilized as well as it can be. So NanoVi will help not only with the utilization of oxygen, but also with the utilization of nutrients. So if that's what the drip is, then that could be a really smart combination.
Yeah, yeah, and so, and kind of keeping that in mind in terms of combinations and uh, the levels to which an individual may have a need, right? Whether they're a peak performer, high performing athlete, for example, or if there's someone is recovering from a surgery or an illness. Do you have different, models, different programs that is offered to sort of make it user, a little bit simpler or just more user friendly for someone? If someone, they're an athlete and they need this particular model or of the machine.
There's because of the way it works, the protocols are not highly differentiated.
Mm.
Have clinical evidence controlled studies showing that it's effective when it's used before and after, but differently. So depending on the type of damage and the protein studied.
Mm.
And so the takeaway is, well, yeah, do it both.
Yeah.
And the really compelling information was using it after for most kinds of damage for athletes.
Yeah.
So if he's really doing a lot of damage, then it's advantageous as an accelerating recovery. Um, but it so much depends on on the individual situation. And then in terms of the sort of medical protocols, those are typically done by doctors that together. So, for example, with stem cell doctors or plastic surgeons or dental surgeons, they'll have their own protocol. And where we see a lot of success is the ones that pre-treat and
Yes.
post. And there's one stem cell doctor that's worked with it for many, many years, and he really believes that pre-treatment is as important for successful stem cell therapies as post-treatment is.
Yeah, I've actually, between hyperbarics and then now, of course, I've had the opportunity to use the machine. It's part of, I work with a lot of physicians, a lot of doctors, and I do a lot of pre-op, post-op type work, pre-treatment, post-treatment. And if someone has access to the machine, it's definitely something that I recommend. So it's either, if you can do hyperbaric, great. And if not, if you can get this machine, it accelerates your healing process. And also accelerates the healing process, minimizes chance of infection, optimizes the results that you actually want. And it's part of the protocol that I do along with nutrition nutrition and diet food, and of course some other modalities. But I would say it's kind of core to any type of pre and post treatment that I recommend in terms of protocols. I don't want to say essential because not everyone has access, but if you do, if you have access, it's absolutely essential.
I love that. And for things like stem cells, the benefits of that therapy are going on for 6 months or something. So it's ability to amp up that impact, a great way to go. So
Yeah. So, and we have even here normally, it was this was a tough week, and thank you to everyone who sent really kind messages and blessings and love. Normally for our retreats, I have sort of like a wellness room set up in the house that we're doing the retreat in. I wasn't able to bring a whole wellness center in, but we definitely obviously brought the NanoVi everywhere, and then some red light. So that's actually something that the girls will do, and we'll just have the red light on while they're hooked up to the NanoVi, even for 15 to 20 minutes. Uh, Ideally 30, but like 15 to 20 is already beneficial. So, this was a great introduction. Thank you so much again, Rowena, for just kind of coming on and reintroducing yourself and the device. Oh yes, Gizmo uses it. Gizmo uses it every day. I'm trying to set up here. We'll show you guys next time. He wears a cone and we've got like plastic, kind of wrapped up. We kind of create this little chamber around his face. And then we have a cannula that just comes up right over here and he gets awesome to picture. I have a video. I have a video of him getting his NanoVi session and he's so relaxed. He meditates. He snores. I'll send you. I'll text it. I'll text it to you
But
as an
I'm
it's adorable.
not sure about Hans, and if that's gonna be on his list of.
We'll have to ask him about it, but maybe maybe next time we'll have it hooked up,
Okay.
just so you guys can see how we do it. But it's really helpful,
Yeah,
you know.
okay. Yes, and we have everything up to horses, so,
Means
keep them.
yeah,
And all of us are so sorry about Jesse, that's such a loss. So,
thank you so much.
trust extras.
Baxter's home now. Thank you. So he's home. He did have to stay overnight in the ER with the vet. So and Gizmo's here. He's just in the other room. It's a bit warm in this room, but he's here. And so far, everyone's having a good day today.
Well, take
So
care of yourself, and thank you everybody that's listening. I really appreciate you being here.
yes, thank you so much. So I'll see you soon. Are you going to be joining? Will it be three of us next time, or just
Up up to
oh,
you.
whatever? That might be fun to have three of us, or whatever it works out. But I will be here, and I'm really excited. And I hope that everyone that's here now will join next time as well and learn more about the science and the
Thank
so thank you guys so much. See you soon.